Hi, welcome to my build of a 60-inch wingspan Avanti Pattern Plane. Today I'm starting to build the wings. If you remember in the last video, I'd got the fuselage to a point where I couldn't do any more until I'd got the wings finished and I'd actually started to fit them and got them into place. So here we are building the wings. I've spent a considerable amount of time setting this up and trying to make sure that everything is right. It's not easy with a tapered wing, so it's actually tapering that way, but it's also tapering, getting thinner towards the tip. So what I've got here is I've got the wing ribs, which I've prepared right at the very beginning of these videos, along with these supports, lifts, to put the jig, to put the wings at the right angle in the right place. I've made the spars. I've actually used hard balsa. This is 12mm square, and I've cut out a section towards the end. You've got just a single kind of width, if you like, and then you've got a doubler here as it comes down to the root of the wing, and you've got a much deeper section there. I kind of opted for this method of cutting it out rather than gluing two bits together, mainly because I'd already got this balsa. It's hard balsa, and the other balsa that I'd got was quite soft if I'd done this in two pieces. So it's just for ease, if you like. This will fit on top of the wings there. We'll get to that in a minute. I've also cut out of 6mm balsa this trailing edge here, 1/4 inch I think it is, which comes along here. So I've just cut a strip out. That still needs profiling once it's set or glued into place. As I said, I've spent a long time trying to sort this out to make sure that everything is right. First thing I did was to put the jigs in place, the 4 jigs, and once they're in place it actually hides the location of the rib. At the front end here you can see it's fine because there's no jig, but at the back you can't. So I've drawn lines on the plan just to show where that would follow through, so I can get the alignment correct. Obviously if they're too much either way, then it alters the taper of the wing. Once I've got those blocks into place, or once I'd started to put them into place, I used my meter steel rule to make sure that they were directly in line this way, so they're dead straight, all lined up. And then I wanted to make sure that actually the bottom of each jig was correct, and I hadn't got one slightly higher than the other, which I've done. And so the jigs are as near as perfect as I'm going to get them. If you remember when I made these jigs, I tacked on some, just with CA glue, some plates either side just to keep them level, stop them tipping. That was a really good decision because it makes them much more stable, but also it allows me a big area to pin them down with these great big T-pins, so they're not going anywhere. I'm on a foam board here, on a flat board, and before I did any of this I used my steel ruler to make sure this was exactly flat and level. So okay, so we've got the jigs in place, I've got this trailing edge in place. I then, this lower spar here, I then pin that in place. It's a little bit too long either end, which is good because it allows me to put some hefty pins into that at either end and not worry about damaging or putting big holes. Not that it would make any difference, probably. I then made sure that that is straight as well and lined up, and I put in some smaller, finer pins. I've then put in the ribs. The rib here, number 2, I've actually made out of 3mm ply rather than 2.5mm balsa like the rest of them. And the reason I've done that is this is parallel with the fuselage, and this is where I'm going to be putting the locking mechanism to lock it into the fuselage. If you remember, the original plans had elastic bands, which I'm doing away with. This adds about, I think it's about 25 grams in total. It's not that much heavier, but it will make it a lot more sturdy. So I'm quite happy with that change. I've lined up all the I've lined up all the ribs, and I've eyed them from this edge. And I found that actually one of them was a little bit too short. F8, this one here, was just a little bit lower than the others. I don't know why. So I've recut F8, and I've just had to add just a very 1/16 of an inch, a mil, something like that, on the top, just here and here. So I've made a new rib for that, because by eyeing them up from the end here, to make sure that everything is in line, it's just to get everything square. It's worth spending half an hour, hour and a half, whatever it takes, to make sure that this is right, because once I've started to glue it, there's no going back. And if one of these ribs is out, you're going to see a dip in the wing. It's not like when you're doing a uniform wing and all the ribs can be made the same. So it's worth spending that extra time. The bird mouths at the front to take the leading edge, which will be the bull nose. There's a little bit of work to be done on those, but it's very difficult trying to get them into place and to eye them up, because they keep moving, essentially. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue onto the spar, onto this trailing edge. I'm going to get this glued in, and then I'm going to look at the bird mouth, and it might be that I just use my scalpel and just shave a little bit off here and there, or just trim it to make sure that is perfectly straight. You could argue that if it's not straight, if there's the odd deviation, well, you could take that out by when you're sanding, creating the bull nose, but I would rather try and get everything just perfect, and then if there are any imperfections, I'll deal with those as they come, but try to get it right first time. So I'm going to start to glue this now. I've now got this all glued in place. I wasn't sure how was the best way to glue it, but it soon became apparent when I was trying to set it up for the final viewing, if you like, just to make sure everything was right, that there was only one way to glue it, and that was to check each individual spar and then CA it. So everything at the moment is CA'd. I just couldn't, you couldn't get it right, I don't think, without a lot of pinning and that for using PVA or epoxy, if you like. And I think CA was the best way to go. I could check, I've got my my blocks which are square. I could square these off, I could put it in place, and then I could move on to the next one, all the time checking this was level or straight. So I'm happy with that. I've put in this additional rib which wasn't in earlier. This is the central rib, R1, and I've used this this adjustable set square to get the correct dihedral, or the correct angle to create the dihedral. So I need to keep that safe now and make sure that doesn't get knocked or damaged, because I'm going to use that on the other wing. The next thing to do is to sand all this, and to sand on this this edge here, so that the sheeting can go on in the correct place. At the moment, this back edge is a little bit high, so it just needs maybe a light plane across or a light sand probably better, so that will fit on. The sheeting here, 3/32 is, which I think is 2.5 mil, is that wide. So I've got to do a single piece down there and the same here after sanding this, getting this right. There is some central sheeting in the middle, but I don't touch that at the moment. I need to make sure I've got the mounting blocks for the wheels and the ailerons, got the linkage in for that. I'm also going to put in some shear webbing. There isn't any shear webbing at all on this, which to me, I think it'd be better if I add it. It'll add nothing to the weight. It's probably going to add less than 10 grams to the weight, if that, probably only 5 grams. I may not come all the way out, but I'll probably come out to about here and do the shear webbing on that. I think it'll just make it a lot stronger and a lot better. Well, I've had a busy morning. This is the right-hand wing I was doing, and I've now taken it off the plans, and I've done as much as I'm going to do with it now until I start joining it up. If you read the booklet that comes with this, with the plans, they talk about at this stage having had the sheeting on the trailing edge here, and also on the nose, or on the leading edge, should I say. The sheeting comes from this spar right through to the front. Now I've left that off for the moment. I've put this top piece on for the trailing edge simply because these joints aren't particularly strong, and I wanted to make sure it was held together and it wasn't going to move. But I've left the other sheeting off, and I'm not going to do that until I've joined the wings. The reason being, I want easy access to the front here. This rib here are 2 lines up with the side of the fuselage, so the fuselage will go there. And I want easy access so I can work on the locking in mechanism. If I sheet this, then I can't do it. And similarly at the back here, I'm going to put in, there's a balsa sort of gusset that goes here, triangular piece. There's a couple of slots, and it slots into there. Well, I'm going to make that out of 5 mil plywood. So I'm going to have a 5 mil plywood gusset here, and I'm going to use that to bolt the wings up into place. And again, I need access for that. And I've still got the hardwood landing gear support or mount to go in there. What I have done, which isn't on the plans, is I've put in these shear webs with the grain going crossways. I've doubled it up both sides on the first 3 bays, and then just done it on a single for the next 3. That has really made it quite a strong wing, I think. And once this sheeting is on the front and the underside and the back, I think it'll be quite strong. And I've still got the wing tips to do. But let's just have a look at this wing I'm laying out here now. It's been quite enlightening laying this out. If you take a look at the plans now, okay, well you can see the wingspan here is too large to print out in one go. So they've done a section of it on the end here, which you can line up with the bit that's been has been admitted here, and they've helpfully put in a line to line it up, AA, and you line that up with AA. The only problem is, if you do that, you end up with 11 ribs on this side, and you end up with 12 ribs on this side. I don't know whether you see, but that's 7, 8, 9, and then you'd go 10, 11, 12. So you need to be mindful of that. This is the join line for rib number 9, and then you go 10, 11. That's one thing, but also lining up the ribs. If you put the ribs lined up with where it shows on the plan, then you'll end up with a left-hand wing that is about a centimetre shorter than the right-hand wing. So what I've actually done is I've used the right-hand wing as a template, and I've lined up the positioning of the ribs with that. So it is now exactly the right length, and I've actually drawn that onto here. I don't know if you can see the marks. Actually, I've missed one out here I need to do. Some of these have moved a little bit just because I've just been knocking it. And I've also marked on this bottom spar. So, I mean, it's the same with all plan builds. I think, you know, these plans will have been scanned, I've had them printed, and who knows what's happened in between. So there's going to be a little bit of stretch, a little bit of shrink maybe. So all the time we have to be constantly checking that everything is right. Same with the ribs on both wings, R4, I've had to recut. So now this is perfectly right, or at least it is if the ribs are upright. And I'm going to start gluing this now. But just a word of advice really is you've just got to check, double check and check again, because you know the plans are you know, aren't going to be perfect, I should imagine, whatever your source really. Well, I've now got the basic structure of the wings finished, and it's really exciting to see them here propped up together. I mean, they're not attached or anything to each other, and they're propped up about roughly what the dihedral is, which is about 1 inch under each tip, and that's looking good. I've given them a sand, and they're all ready when necessary to put on the additional sheeting. But the next job now, and the next video, will be looking at the locking mechanism for the front into the fuselage, the plate in the back here for the bolt, and also I need to think about, I'm going to put in a very short dihedral brace, I think we call it, probably 2 or 3 mil ply. So I'll need to trim this these central ribs, and I'm also going to need to think about the servos. But I hope you'll come back and see how we get on with this. I'm really excited to see how this looks now I've got this basic structure together.